Investec Champions Cup round 1, 583 points scored. I'm lying, 579. 83 tries. One South African win. The Sharks at home. The Stormers lost to Toulon. The Bulls went down to Saracens in away defeat, so that's not a train smash at the moment. But just incredible weekend of rugby. This is the most demanding club competition in the world. And the French, I must say, they delivered in round 1. They arrived like this is the one they want to win. When I looked at Toulouse, hammering Ulster, taking them apart by 60-odd points. Anton Dupont, some love him, some don't quite give him his dues. In his first match of the season, 23 carries. He offloaded 4 times. Joined first with Cammy Hanekom of the Bulls. He assisted 4 tries. He scored 1 himself. And for good measure, he kicked 2 50-22s. I would say the boy can play a bit.
Lucky bounce, mate.
Lucky bounce. Anton Dupont, lucky bounce. Huh?
Great sevens player.
Great sevens. Ball player of the year.
His backline must absolutely hate him. I mean, doesn't he pass the ball? How is he making 23 carries, mate?
That guy's just, he's got this magnetic Midas touch on the field. He can run it back from the halfway line to his own try and no one seems to want to touch him. Then he just runs it forward again. Offloads and off they go.
Super player.
But just watching Toulouse, 6-time champions. Look, the way this competition is structured, first of all, they played last week and they play this week and then they break till January and they play the 2 other league games. Top 4 teams in the pools go through and then we have to wait till April for the last 16, the last 8, and then we wait till May for first week of May a semi-final, 25th in Cardiff the final. So it is so disjointed that you can't really get a measure for form because the team that's so in form in December may have suffered 10, 12 injuries by the time April comes along.
But that's what makes it such a tough competition, is that you kind of drop in and it's win or go home, often.
No, exactly. And it's, I think you look at a side like the Stormers, 16 players unavailable for their match this weekend, all injured. If they were playing a final this weekend, those 16 players, and there's about 9 Springboks in there, couldn't play. So they are sending a very, very young team to play Harlequins at the Stoop. But if you look come April, if they just featuring somewhere or somehow that they make it into a playoff, they should have all those Springboks back in. They have a very different side that goes on the road or plays at home.
Totally.
But when I look at a side like Toulouse, I don't think it matters where they play.
No, they can't lose, mate. Those blokes are power.
They are an incredible club side. That Toulouse side reminds me of the Glory Crusader side and has a hint of that Bull side that won 3 Super Rugby championships in a row. Not quite the grunt and mongrel of Toulon, but free-flowing and just beautiful, beautiful team to watch. And I haven't seen an Ulster side, no matter how limited, depleted, weakened they may have been for their away game. I've seen no one in the URC take Ulster apart like that.
Not like that, mate. Not like that. And I think the strength of the French teams in the Champions Cup is a reflection of the way that French rugby is assembled. Like the All Blacks, New Zealand rugby is all about the All Blacks. Everything is geared up to make the All Blacks as strong as possible. In France, you kind of get an inversion of that. Like the top 14 is what it's all about. And as a spin-off of that, you've got these power clubs that come out of the French league that are massively contenders in the Champions Cup. And you see that in Toulouse. You're seeing that now in Bordeaux. La Rochelle's obviously had success. So I think that's a common theme of French rugby. That's what makes them so dangerous in this competition.
Well, you talk about that. They value the top 14 higher than they do any international.
More than Super Rugby.
None of their players ever go on that mid-year tour because the top 14 final clashes with the first test that they'll play.
There you go.
They always pull them back and then they tend to not send them over for the final 2 tests, or if they do, they'll stagger a couple of players in for that final test if it's a 1-all series. The Champions Cup is played in May the 25th. If it was played a bit later, it would be the same thing for them. If they're in the final, they don't play for the national team.
Right.
That is the big competition. When I spoke to Bucky's Buerta as well, that wonderful Toulon side that featured 7 South Africans that won the Champions Cup 2013, 14 and 15, and also won a top 14 in that. He said they were the pioneers of history there to get 3 in a row. That was everything they played for, was to be, back then, champions of Europe. Now South Africa's involved as basically champions of the world. Because we said it last week. You take the Crusaders at their best and a rejuvenated Blues team, you stick them in this competition and you've got everyone.
You've got everybody.
There's actually no one else you need.
Correct.
Maybe the Brumbies on a good day. But that's it. There's nothing coming out of Japan that you would put into that. Nothing coming out of the States.
Nope.
Or Argentina or any of the South American countries. So you've got this incredible competition that is like a staggered World Cup for clubs over a period of 6 months. Some of the most fantastic rugby players in the world playing for the respective clubs. And with a lot of them, there's so many different nationalities playing there as well. So it's not just I support South Africa, I support New Zealand or England or France. It's like I support that team because they kind of represent a whole abundance of rugby. And that's why I love this competition so much. To me, it is the highlight, the biggest one. I've been watching it for the best part of, it's 30 years old, but I've been watching it for the best part of 20 years with great intent. I'll go back to when Trevor Halstead, formerly of the Sharks, played for Munster. They won in Cardiff. I think that was 2002. And South Africans have just featured consistently in big games and big finals. And we looked at La Rochelle, had Dylan Lates there, Raymond Rule. There's always a South African name somewhere in the mix. And then obviously the Saracens teams had a lot of South Africans, and then the Toulon team that had 7 of them, 5 of them World Cup winners, or 4 World Cup winners, and Joe van Niekerk, the iconic pioneer that went to Toulon and played 122 games. But looking at that first round, it certainly delivered on all the hype. And what I loved was a side like Toulon sending their strongest team to Cabrera to play against the Stormers. And that was one hell of a brutal game. Kudos out to the public there. 28,000, I believe, paid to go watch the Stormers play.
Fabulous.
An away/home game. That region starved of rugby. I think the Stormers should play half their games there.
Not a bad call.
Forget going to Stellenbosch to appease a couple of students. Get out to the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium and play there. Just a wonderful reception. At 17-14, that game could have gone anywhere with the last 15 minutes. Again, horrendous injuries. Keki Marebe breaks his leg. Second time in 9 months. Mani Blabok gets knocked out. Polak's concussed. Thought he was gone. But he gave us the big hand and the thumbs up on the way out. Typical Mani. And just opportunism from Toulon, but also on very aggressive defence, the way they turned us over and they scored. And then just the inexperience that was there in the end. I always just felt, and chatting to Dobbo as well after the game, that if you look at Baptiste Seren and Dan Bigger, such class and experience at halfbacks, and I just felt our halfbacks weren't quite at the races in that match. Switch the halfbacks around in that game, and you may have a different result. But, you know, the Stormers getting a lot of flack at the moment for losing 3 games in a row by a score, basically. With the last 5 minutes, Glasgow, some poor decision-making cost them. Could have snuck it against the Sharks in the last minute. TMO cost them. And at 17-14, they had the opportunity to close that game out. Injuries cost them, and also just some poor decisions. And then credit to Toulon side that was fired up, led by former Western Province 7-cap wonder boy David Rabans, who also played for England. He's played 11 Test matches. If he doesn't play again for them, he may play for us in the 2027 World Cup on the stand-down rule. But Toulon, I was impressed with them, man.
Yeah, very, very good. You mentioned the international flavour of these Champions Cup teams. For me, Facundo Issa, the number 8 for Toulon, outstanding. I don't know, ran through 3, 4, 5. I don't know how many players on his way to scoring a try. Beast. And I think if you switch to 8, 9, and 10 in that game, the Stormers could win that thing by 25 points. The Stormers are having a disappointing season, but it's in the context of the fact that they've got basically an entire squad out injured. If you had to bring back the Kitsis, the Malhabers, Brunnis, Roos, Gaza, who else is there? I mean,
Sasha FM, Samuel Murat,
exactly,
who's back again this weekend. At least he'll be playing at the Stoop for Harlequins. They've sent a very young team, but you know they say one man's poison, another man's opportunity. And the one thing that this competition does allow when there's injuries is for a youngster to go in there and actually kick the door down and say, I actually belong here. You're only going to pick me in 2 years' time. I'm 21 years old. I can play at this level. We look at the All Black situation. Wallace Atiti. He only got in because Blackadder got injured.
Correct.
And once he got in, it was like, how can we leave this guy out again? But had Blackadder not got injured, he was such a flavour of the month with Scott Robinson. He would have probably stuck around for most of the season, and Satiti would have been drip-fed into the system. So I always look at a situation, look, I'm not a coach, so, I mean, injuries are coach killers. Poor decision-making in the field, coach killers. So I think if a guy like Dobbo had any hair, there'd be none left.
Be gone.
Yeah, be gone by now in any case. But just from someone who loves rugby, and then loves to see what's next off the conveyor belt, these kind of competitions do allow youngsters. And you look at that Stormer squad that's going over to play on Saturday. There's so many kids who were playing in under 21s a year ago who were fed into the Curry Cup to see could they handle Could they handle a Griquas or a Cheetahs in Bloemfontein? Now they're playing Toulon. They're playing Harlequins in London. I mean, you look at that back row
Totally.
that finished the game against Toulon. You had Lowe, you had Willie Engelbrecht, and who was the other
Marcel?
flanker? And Marcel Tennyson. Now, if you had said to Dobbo, 10 minutes to go against Toulon, your back row has to fire. I can guarantee you, with the greatest respect to those three players, they're not in that starting lineup.
Totally.
They're not in that match 23.
Totally.
So we keep on saying context has to be provided to strength of teams, and not kind of this realistic notion that, why they're losing or why is a team winning kind of thing. We've seen the improvement in the Bulls over the last seasons because Wilco Lowe came back and anchored a scrum that was going nowhere at one stage, and Steiner come through. So they've got incredible lucid, incredible tight end, and it transformed the way the Bulls started playing.
Look at the Sharks.
Sharks, they asked John Plumtree, what's changed? He said, my 9 Springboks that came back. So the value of those players just can't be overstated. But when I look at this competition, I look at the games, we're going to start with the Sharks. I mean, you watch the game intently, you were WhatsApping me the whole game. You were like fired up about the Sharks are not getting out of second gear. Then boom, boom, they're into fifth gear, and then they just stick it back into neutral for like half an hour. But I'm liking what I'm seeing about the best of the Sharks, because they look like a team that just, they're full strength side. When they just need to get 14 points, they do, and then they just go into some kind of like relaxed pause mode for about 20 minutes.
I don't know what it is about that. The Sharks have got, I mean, you look at that roster, it's a world-beating roster. It's an amazing team that they've got there, and they are getting the results, they're getting the wins. But if I'm Plum and I'm looking at that narrow victory against this beaten-up Stormers team, and moments in this Exeter game where they flew over these kids from England to come and play at Kings Park, I would say, you know, he's probably got a few things drawn in red circle there for improvement for the Sharks. Certainly with Sia Kolisi, Evan Etzebeth, you know, Lekanyo, you've got great talent there. Some youngsters coming through. You know, I'm an Ethan Hooker fan, deluxe. I think that kid's got something special.
What is it about Ethan Hooker that
every time that
from
guy,
day one that you said to me in the Curry Cup?
Yeah,
you watch this kid, eh? You can play 12, 13, 11.
He just doesn't have a bad touch. Ethan Hooker never has a bad touch. Every time he's on the ball, something good happens. And we're talking about a guy who's been playing out of position a lot for the Sharks as well. He's a centre. He's power. He's got great sort of, skills. He never makes a bad decision on the ball. And when the moment needs it, he's clutch. He comes through for them, and somebody creates an opportunity, he finishes. He creates an opportunity for the Sharks to score. It's Kanan had that. When Kanan first came on the scene, it was that every touch was a golden touch. And Ethan Hooker showing the exact same thing for a kid who's so young. I know he's playing in a team with a lot of experience, but he certainly doesn't look like a youngster. He looks like a guy who's been there and done it several times.
I mean, he's 6'4" as well. It's not yet 21.
It helps.
Huge physical presence.
Yeah.
For me, looks like a better rugby version of Duan van der Merwe. I mean, let's not...
He's a great rugby player, this guy. He's not just a big athlete.
A big brute.
Yeah.
I mean, he can play in the midfield.
Easily.
He'll do a job for you out on the wing. But
Yeah.
ultimately, his best position is either in the 12 or 13 jersey.
Yeah.
I think he would have been on that box too if he was not injured at the end of the year. I don't know how much game time he would have got. But I certainly see him playing. If he's fit, I certainly see him playing for the box, especially in those early test matches against Italy and against...
I hope so. Sure, that'd be magnificent.
And against Georgia, you know. So he's been the big takeout for you. Among the backs. Jordan Hendricks at 10 seems to be loving life.
Yeah, he's having a good time. Like I say, when you're playing with those guys up front, those Springbok double world champions, it's quite difficult not to make it look good. But, you know, Jordan is a very good player, very skillful player, can maybe sort of tighten his game up a bit and get the consistency to be more on point. But certainly massive high ceiling for Jordan Hendricks, a guy who can bang it over from a million miles and a great playmaker, big body in contact. So he's a fabulous prospect for them in the sense that he can only really grow, and I think he will grow going forward. I'm pretty sure he's going to want his brother to come along for that. I'm not sure how good of a fit the way the Sharks play rugby is for a guy like Jordan. It seems like Grant Williams is a better fit for that tempo speed game they've got going there, but I'm rooting for Jordan. I think he's a fabulous rugby player, and he would be the guy I'd be looking at for the box in the long term.
And then the big favourite for me is Sia Kolisi's positional switch from the side of the scrum to number 8.
Fabulous
He
call.
looks like he's been there all his life. He looks so natural at 8. He looks so natural playing it off the base of the scrum. His support lines running off Hendricks are also just superb. And you just see more of an attacking Sia Kolisi, the footballer, when he plays at 8. as the hard guy that's hunting the ball, forcing turnovers when he's playing on the side of the scrum. I was really impressed with Sia. Sia's, since he's come back from the tour, he's kind of really put it out there. He's charismatic. I mean, and the support the guy gives. He was in Cape Town on Sunday to support the Sevens.
I think he wanted to run, mate.
I think he wanted to get out there, No, it just...
Yeah, there was Sia. The thing is, like, circumstance conspired to make him this out-and-out open-side flanker. With Skalkberger's injury in 2012, he comes into the mix, makes his debut for the Stormers, and just takes off, has a fabulous season for them, and kind of cements that 6 jersey as his best position. But I think people underestimate how good an athlete Sia is. Power ball carrier, quicker than people probably recognize, and good soft skills. And a guy who I think could definitely slot in at 8. I'm not sure about him under the high ball and some of the kicking game aspects, but certainly as an athlete and a linking player, he's definitely got the athleticism to do it. And from longevity point of view, look at Skalk towards the end of his career. He kind of switched to more of a linking role, got away from the trenches a little bit, and it extended his career. And see his value as a leader and as a player, massive for the Springboks. So I think a move to 8 makes a lot of sense on multiple fronts.
And then you look at Eben. His body looks tired, eh? I think he needs a good couple of weeks off. Lannebaum, Sun, a couple of Branners and Cokes, and get back for that big game in the URC when they play the Stormers, I think on the 28th at the DHL Stadium. Probably be close to 40,000 people there. Although he's actually never played the Stormers since he's left. Hopefully he'll miss that one as well. Be in the stands supporting both sides. But I like the way the Sharks are playing. They're getting the wins they should get. They were down to 12 players at one stage, 12 on 15. Exeter must just look at them and think, how did we not score in the last 5 minutes?
Totally.
When a numbers game, we were 15, they were 12, and they were still trying the magic play instead of just playing hands, kind of playing field position and playing with a little bit of rugby intelligence. But a comfortable win. They got the 5 league points. I believe they are sending a very, very youthful team to go play Leicester and trying to bank the next one at home. And again, we keep on talking about how strategic you got to play these moves. We saw an Ulster take 61 points against Toulouse. It wasn't their best team that went over. We saw Leicester take a big one against the Bordeaux. It wasn't their best team that went over. So teams are strategically playing. Let's make sure we win our home games and try and pock something away from home just to get into that playoff stage.
Because you have to win your home games in this comp. There is no opportunity to make amends for a home loss later on in the league. There is no later on. You've got 4 games in the pool phase, 2 of which are away from home. So you've got 2 home games. You have to make those count and hope you can scrounge at least a bonus point on the road.
And the key there is to get the home playoff in the last 16 and then be on a log positions where you can get the home playoff in the last 8.
Correct.
Because home ground advantage is basically everything in this competition, especially if you're traveling from South Africa into Europe.
And the South Africans can't host the semis and obviously the finals in a neutral venue. So the home quarterfinal is your springboard into those last 2 playoffs.
All that kind of changes when we get to
next year.
Next year, when we become full members of the EPCR and kind of get all the direct flights. Players will love that and get all the kind of like goodies that come with it, and then we're full members. But just lovely to have the South African teams in there, and also again to showcase outside of the Springboks, to showcase to our audience where we're strong and where we're still lacking when it comes to the bigger club teams in the world, because there is life beyond just the Springboks, All Blacks, and international rugby. The lifeblood of rugby is club rugby,
totally,
and especially in Europe. And you look at those French powerhouses in the top 14. At a time, there were stronger clubs in the Premiership. That seems to have taken a big beating. And then you look at a Leinster, it's just the Irish squad with Geordie Barrett and Achilles. Not too shabby there.
Better.
Only getting better, only getting stronger.
Yeah.
So when I look at that, the Sharks pool, they've got Leicester that they play away from this weekend. And as I said, it's not their full strength sides game. So you've got to back Leicester at home to win that one. They've got Toulouse. Now, they play Toulouse at home, you told me.
Yeah.
The key there is, does Toulouse have to send their full-strength side at that stage of the competition to get the points? Because that will be an incredible game. That should be a sellout in Durban. The Sharks against Toulouse with all their Springboks in. But Toulouse, they just look, they're going to be there at the death. I think it's a matter of who plays them in the final, not whether they get to the final.
Spot on, I agree with that.
They just look brilliant. I think the Sharks will be looking probably realistically a top 3, more so than a top 2, but it will still get them qualification into the last 16.
Yeah.
Then we look at the Stormers. Again, brave, spirited, all those cool things you can say about a team. Butch James was commentating on SuperSport at halftime, and he had called Toulon to win by 14 before the game. At halftime, it was 14-10 to the Stormers, and he said he didn't feel that the Stormers were going to have the cattle off the bench to actually stick with
on.
this Toulon side. But he said, I'll give this team one thing. They don't go away.
They do not go away. That's
They
a
are
common
fighters,
feature.
and that's a trait of Dobbo's teams.
Spot on.
Of any team that's led. I mean, Neerton for sheer leadership, his scrumming, his aggression. It was one of those power games. He's always good in what he does in terms of his disciplines. But he really wanted to scrum his opposite number, and he wanted to give him a little bit of niggle on the side. And I just felt that power game of the way they were hitting the rucks and cleaning out, it was led by Neerton, and the other guys followed. Ruben van Heerden, always been very busy, but I thought he was powerful as well. It just fell apart once that ball went back, and it just wasn't there to kind of dictate and control it. But I do believe there's youngsters that are going to benefit from playing now. In 2 years' time, we may be looking at some of the youngsters and saying, wow, how's this kid so good at 22, 23? Maybe because he was beaten up or played a tough game against a physical Toulon.
Totally.
When he should have been playing Varsity Cup. He was playing in that league already.
Yeah.
But the Stormers, some people say dark days. To me, they were always going to have a season like this. They need their top 8, 9 players, as most do. They've lost effectively a whole pack. And 4 of them are Springboks. And they've lost their 2 talismanic playmakers, Sasha FM and Gaza. I mean, geez, take those 2 guys out of any team and it's going to be weaker. So it's not making an excuse for them. They weren't good enough to get the win at the end.
Spot on.
And Toulon were good enough.
Spot
and for
on.
Toulon to come to South Africa in front of 28,000 and win the game, led by Somerset College old boy, former province old boy Dave Ribbons. Kudos to them, and I think just applaud the quality of that French effort. And Baptiste Seren reminded us, if there was no Antoine Dupont, he'd probably be playing for France. This is going to get a guy that's not going to play for France in the foreseeable future, because he's a starting option when he plays for France. I don't think the guy wants to sit on the bench either. And while Dupont's there, he's never going to play. But reminding us just class at 9, a 9 who can kick for poles as well, and then Dan Bigger's experience at 10. Toulon, I think, can go. They get a home win now. I think they'll back themselves to go a lot further in this tournament.
No, I think Toulon is definitely a contender, and obviously Glasgow's in Group 4 as well with them. Glasgow URC reigning champions, also a hell of a unit. So Racing is a bit of a dark horse, and Quins with Marcus Smith and those guys in the mix, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough pool.
It's a tough
and
pool.
Some very good players, some very good teams. Love the win that Franco Smith's Glasgow got. They've been highly rated in Europe. People are saying, the commentators on the north are saying they will go far. Nice South African contingent there, nice South African coach as well. So whenever a South African is involved, we claim it, guys. If we don't win it as a South African team, we find one that has nationality. Josh van der Vlier, born in Bredasdorp. No, he's not, mate. He's Dublin. Bredasdorp. A van der Vlier.
Exactly.
We do have an Achius name on there. So anytime Leinster does anything now, we'll talk about the South African influence. Achius name on the Viking.
Can we talk about the Bulls, please?
Yes.
Can we get to the Bulls now?
I didn't want to. Sorry, Jakey. I'm sorry, Jakey. But you guys were abysmal. No way to sugarcoat the dumbest rugby I've ever seen.
Yeah,
dumbest rugby I've ever seen. You guys played like fools. I'm going to ask you this. You're a coach. You play with a 50-mile wind. You don't use it effectively in terms of field position. You try and play football. Somehow you're 8-5 down. You get a penalty in the last minute of halftime. You kick it to the corner. You have to basically catch the ball and maul it and fall over. In that play, you put David Creel as centre into the line-out, and Mario Toje says, thank you very much, I'll just wrap him up and close off the half. Now, there's innovation, there's just stupidity.
That's the thing with innovation. When it doesn't come off, people say it's stupidity. When it does, they say, you're a bloody genius, mate. You know?
Would you have put David Creel in at that moment at lock?
I'm not going to argue with Andries Becker. He's twice my height, literally. So, and his beard is in much better condition than mine. So I'm not going to argue about why they did what they did there. For me, the Bulls lost that game at the coin toss when they ended up taking the wind first. And I think Jake intimated afterwards that he thought, look, we've got the wind. The wind is howling now. Let's take it in the first half, because by the time the second half comes, it could have abated. And in general rugby terms, I totally agree with that. When you're in the middle of a storm that's moving rugby matches from one venue to the other, that thing is for real. You've got to have it in the second half, because you want to know exactly what score you've got to get to. So you want the other team to put the score on the board, and then the second half you use the wind to negate that. I also think the way that the Bulls played in sort of chasing tries up front wasn't the way to go. You build the scoreboard pressure as much as it takes time off the clock. Once you've got the other team pinned in their half in that first half and chasing the score, the opportunities come. And then in the second half, and I've had this as a coach before, when you play in massive windy conditions, it's natural for rugby players to think that they shouldn't kick the ball because it's not going to go as far into the wind. And so they try and keep the ball. And all that does is generate turnovers for the other team to feast off. So you have to stick to your kicking game. You have to stick to the idea that you can play defense and win the ball, and from those turnovers you strike, because you can't strike when you're running into a 50-mile-an-hour wind. So I think the Bulls learned a lot of tactical lessons from that game. Jake pretty much said as much. Disappointing result for them. I want to see how they respond this week, because that really wasn't the way that they would have wanted that to go. And in the Bulls circumstance, you can kind of say there was very much a third force at play.
There was. I mean, the weather conditions were just incredibly challenging, and nothing was going to abate that night.
Exactly.
So maybe they need to put a weather expert onto their coaching team.
Mate, I'll volunteer.
Hey, mate, you will be having 80 minutes of wind today. Play against it for the first 40.
Lots of it.
I just felt there, and I mean, in Saracens, like the more they stayed in the game in that first half, they know their home ground, they know the conditions. You could just see them getting pumped and knowing, if we just turn within a score behind, we'll win this game. They turned 3 points up. And then the way that half ended was such a positive for them, with their big name player, Mario Tojo wrapping him up, Jamie George pumping the air, their 2 England internationals. You just knew it was going to be, how many do they score in the second half? And I actually thought they were going to score more than end up with 27-5. But a big defeat there for the Bulls, and not one they would have banked on. I think they went there thinking they could actually win that game.
No, they went to go give it horns. They just,
picked a good squad. You know, Cam Hunnicorn, 4 offloads in the tackle. Again, how effective were they? That's where stats can be a bit misleading. Do you put the guy in the better position or not?
The withdrawal of Will Kolisi was a massive game changer. In the week, I said, these are 3 syllables, Will Kolisi, they're going to win. Didn't play.
Well, maybe Wilco, he's been at Harlequins for 3 years. He saw the storm and he realized, you know what, be easier in Pretoria next weekend. That Hammy's just not feeling so good. I just want to stretch it down a bit, okay?
Especially at Rex.
Van vanaand nie. Ek kom bietjie in die stands. But, I'm confident they're going to bounce back and smash Northampton.
Yes, I agree.
Loftus. Get the 5 league points and get themselves back on track. What the game did show me was we're so, excuse the pun, bullish about the Bulls when they play at home. It's like, who comes to Loftus and beats them? You know, that kind of thing. But they still got a hell of a long way to go away from home. So I saw a side like Toulon come to Cabrera and really just look composed, not look frantic, be brutal in their approach. And it was kind of like a Toulon you would see at the Stade Mayol playing there. I didn't see that Bulls team away from home, and seldom have we seen that Bulls team away from home. I go back to the URC 20, the 1-point win, which was flattered Leinster because they scored after the hooter. When the Bulls beat them in the semi-finals, the first season of the URC, came down to Cape Town and then lost to the Stormers 18-13, Dobbo's first title win, the Stormers' first ever international title win, be it Super Rugby or URC. But since then, these games that they've gone, you just think, I want to see this Bulls team show that maturity that they should have by now. And for me, they shouldn't be learning those technical lessons out there. They should actually be good enough, because this isn't a young Bulls team. This isn't a team that's just come out of the 21 ranks Jake's had for a season. There's some bloody good players there and some very experienced players. And I just thought there was a lot of naivety in the way they played, and especially underestimating the grunt that Saracens bring, the pedigree that Saracens bring. And again, what South Africans may not realize is the history that's associated in tradition to this competition, the Investec Champions Cup. Mario Tojo, a British and Irish Lion, England thing, says his biggest moments have been for Saracens winning the Champions Cup. Jamie George said the same thing. Like, this is the competition they want to play for. This is, if you go back to the old traditional South African ways, this is their Currie Cup.
Well, the reason for that, mate, is there were not South African teams in those comps, so they could actually win it. Whereas in the test arena, those guys know. As soon as they come up against South Africa, it's over, mate.
No, it's true. And look, they even getting a little bit worried that we're playing in this competition. They say, it's not anymore the European Cup. It's not, mate. It's global.
Correct.
We're here. We want it all. But it's going to take, I think, 3 years.
Yeah.
I think another 3 years, for a South African team or two to be very competitive in the Champions Cup, because then we'll have a squad of 25, 30 players, or it's going to take some very good buying over the next 2 years. The Sharks are getting there in terms of the Galacticos, who they're bringing in, but you want to basically have a Leinster Toulouse kind of setup. Toulouse mainly homegrown, but great system. And then strategic, who they pick. Mm-hmm. And then Leinster, obviously, the academy system is just magnificent. Then they strategically pick an Archie Snyman and a Geordie Barrett.
Totally.
I mean, to have those two guys coming off the bench against Bristol.
But, I mean, like you're talking about it, Archie Snyman is now playing for Leinster. And I think that's the point. Like, you talk about Toulouse and the depth they have. Toulon, they've got an Argentinian number 8. They've got a Welsh fly half. Like, the South African teams are full of...
They've got a South African lock
who plays for England,
who captains them.
And that's exactly my point, is that the South African teams are full of South Africans, and some of our best players are overseas, and so our squads are depleted in that sense. And so when you fight on more than one front, you kind of have to manage your resources in a way that Toulouse doesn't. Toulouse can go and buy the best player in Argentina, potentially, and chuck them in their pack.
Well, you look at their salary budgets. I mean, it's just... I think Toulouse is 50, their player budget, their rugby budget, I think is 50 million euros a year. 50 million euros a year. I think our team's maximum is like 90 million rand. I think between 90 million rand and 120 million rand, I think that's what we're looking at in South African teams in terms of what their player budgets are.
There's 2 trillion pesos.
How many pesos is that, man? How many Zimbabwean dollars? So that's kind of what we are up against. That's the reality of it. Eh? And where you see the French teams also contract very cleverly is they contract a lot of the island players who then don't play for Fiji or they don't play for Samoa.
Pacific Island players.
The Pacific Island players, yeah. Not the island players, the island players with an S. And so when their French internationals are out, they still have wonderful players who are playing. And... and it's again, even when you looked at the Leinster setup last year, so when you had their 2 Irish centres out, you had an All Black who was playing centre for them, who was going to be there or thereabouts, always in the extended squad, but gives that kind of experience. We just don't quite have that luxury at the moment.
But we're getting there.
Sharks are getting there.
We're getting there.
The Bulls are getting there. The Stormers are some way off. And the Stormers have lost so many players, so many injuries. There's a big rebuild that will come over the next 2 years. But I think collectively in this competition, best hope for us is to get a home quarter final. Sharks, I think, and Bulls, those are the 2 vying for it. Stormers' best hope, try and get a last 16. And then go travel, get some money for the gate. But realistically, it's going to take 2 to 3 years for us to say the Champions Cup, the Investec Champions Cup, is a competition the South African team can win with the travel demands, but also with the squad depths.
And also the venue of your semi-final and.
Completely. So enjoy it for what it's worth now. We go Saturday, Sunday again. Friday we go Investec Champions Cup. Young team going to Harlequins. I've got the Stormers to win by 5. You've got...
Not the Stormers.
Come on,
man.
tell me, mate.
No, the Quins will win that one.
And win it well.
I'm going to give them 8 points.
8?
Yeah, I'm going to give them 8 points.
Mate outside told me 38 points to 18 for Quins. 20 points
not a bad
for
shot.
Quins. I'm saying the Stormers are going to surprise. They are going to show a spirited thing.
Come on.
And watch this space. Okay? I never back against the boys from Cape Town.
I think there's a few boys from Cape Town in that Quins team.
Call me partisan, but...
Simon Kerrod from Pretoria Boys, mate.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey, interesting, eh? Tyrone Green, is he playing?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question.
He's been a good player. Playing a fullback and on the wing for them. So, Stormers out there. Dobbo and the boys, Darby Snowman, Rito, and Norman Laker. Never forget Norman Laker.
10 p.m. Saturday night.
10 p.m., eh? Time you normally going out or going to bed, watching them play at the Stoop. They go from like 30 degrees in Cape Town to that. So another challenge, the weather conditions. The Bulls at home, I've got them to pump this Northampton Saints by 20 points.
I'm going to say we have that fourth quarter issue again. Bulls make a great start, look fantastic in the first 50 minutes, and win this by 12 points.
And I got the Sharks, if my information is correct. They do send a very limited team in terms of not too many of the big Springboks. Then I've got Leicester, led by Andre Pollard. I've got them to win by 15 points.
Yeah, I've got, I'll take Leicester by 15 is a great score. I'll take Leicester by 15 as well, actually. That's lovely.
All right, so that's the Investec Champions Cup. It all stops after this weekend. They go into a break till the 10th of January. We then go into the URC mode. There's the South African teams make up those derbies. It's the 21st in Cape Town. Vodacom URC in Cape Town. It's the Lions. The Lions, and we're going to get to the Lions now, against the Stormers. And then the big one, the Coastal Derby, the Sharks and I think they're going to come with all their bokke. They're going to come to Cape Town on the 28th to end the season with a bang, and hopefully the Stormers will have a few players back, and it'll be a great match in front of 40,000 people at the DHL Stadium. And show that South African rugby is so strong and so alive. Again, Kabera, 28,000 people for a game. Amazing. Not so happy with what I saw in Durban. I think 10, 11,000. You got the Galacticos, you got some of the greatest players. You got a great city. Come on, go and support your team, man.
When the sun's up, you go to North Beach.
Yeah, everyone goes to the beach. I know that. I believe that. So,
does Eben play that game at the end of the
I hope to God not, just for the Stormers' sake, okay? And for Eben's body and for rest.
We're trying to get him to the next
I'm promoting the culture of Eben needs to rest for a bit now. Eh? He needs to rest till June. Sure. Be ready for the international season. So we talk about the Lions, the Challenge Cup, the EPCR Challenge Cup. You have come in here with your Lions outfit because you are the biggest Lions fan.
I've grown into the biggest Lions fan. The Lions fans hated me in the latter stages of Super Rugby when I told them that style of play is not going to win you a championship. It is beautiful to watch, and it is effective when people take the bait, but it's not going to work. They hated my guts. Now I'm kind of warming up to the Lions. I love what Cash has done there. I love that they punch above their weight. Guys who are kind of off the A-list are finding ways to win games. So I'm a big Lions fan at the moment. I love the fact that they prepared for this week's match against Power, sent some of their big heavy hitters home. And last week, it didn't go the way they wanted to against Ospreys. But I think there's probably some valuable lessons learned from that defeat. Like, hopefully you never get that referee assigned to your match again.
They made 14 changes. I want to just tell Cash, you're not quite there yet to make 14 changes.
That's brave, mate.
Maybe 4 or 5, but not 14.
Yeah.
Eh? I think if they had balanced it a bit more, and maybe 6 or 7 changes, they could have won that game.
Mate, the Lions could have won that game. I thought there were some interesting calls that went against them, and I think they let themselves down in one or two departments. But I think Cash wasn't far off in thinking he could beat Ospreys with that team.
Mate, I can tell you one thing that they didn't have to contend with was the crowd. I thought it was COVID again. Huh?
They moved the venue, mate.
I thought
it
was COVID on the open side. There was just no one there.
Yeah, no, there was no one there.
It was a very, very disappointing.
Must have been a tricky thing, that moving the venue at the last second.
Yeah. The Bulls wish they'd moved the venue as well. Back to
somewhere
Pretoria.
Indoors.
We'll play this one at Pretoria. We'll give you a 10-point start.
Deal?
And a lot of brandy and coke.
Yeah.
Ricky Lowe.
Yeah.
But the Lions, they're at home, and they will smash Power.
Yes, they're going to smash Power.
I got them to win by 25 points.
At least, mate.
30 points.
I'll take 30 points.
35.
No, I'm not going 35. And Klabakanya is back in the mix. He's going to put the cut in Kapow as they destroy those guys. Dan Joost, the former Sharks hooker, he plays for Power.
Another Paul Boys High guy.
There you go.
So,
the Power are 10th, I think, in the top 14. And the Lions have been waiting for this game at altitude. I think it's going to be a long day.
I've got 30 points for the Lions, right back in the mix. I've got them and my favorite, my romance with the Cheetahs, the Toyota Cheetahs. My romance with them continues.
Yeah.
In Amsterdam, playing in orange, and in Nederlands. They think they are the home team there.
Mate.
They've got the colours, they've got everything. The Amsterdam Rugby Stadium, 5,000 it takes, sold out, wonderful atmosphere. That synthetic pitch, not really to my liking, but geez, these guys don't play any rugby. They go out there, they're 30 seconds away from beating Pepillon, who's a top 14 team that's into this. They played 11 rounds of rugby already.
Yep.
Pepillon. 11 rounds. They come in battle hardened, and it's really a game that the Cheetahs drew, deservedly so, but they should have won as well. And we look at it again, like Neville Nobody, some would say, no-name brands, but the gees, the ticker, the karakter van hierdie span. Dis 'n plesier om hulle te ondersteun.
I love it when you talk foreign. Listen.
It's a plesier om hulle te ondersteun. And Francie Steyn came out with some big comments, and I agree with him. They need more rugby. They want to play in the Challenge Cup. They want to try and compete to be in the Investec Champions Cup where they can test themselves against the best. They can lure players in. But if that's not going to be, what's there down south for them? That's all he was saying. He wasn't knocking the quality of the competition.
It wasn't about the Challenge Cup. It was about getting more rugby in Super Rugby.
And they're away for a month now. They played 2 games in Amsterdam. They played 2 on the road. They came to Cardiff this weekend.
At Cardiff, yeah.
And just, guys, feel for them. Feel for these guys who play no rugby. The last they played was in the Currie Cup. They made the semi-finals. They get on a plane. It was Palma 2 seasons ago. Now Amsterdam. They make it their home. And they produce that kind of performance. So You know, we talk about the Stormers depleted with injuries. We talk about the Bulls, second tier, not as good as first. But then you look at the Cheetahs.
Totally.
Those guys box above their weight.
100%.
Every time. And that's why they're such a popular team. They don't moan, they don't bitch, they just play.
And they produce. I mean, like you said, he's like straight out of the freezer into the game. Almost beat Perpignan.
Look, they've got the most popular director of rugby, Franz Steyn, a World Cup winner at 20, a World Cup winner into his 30s. He would have gone to a third World Cup in terms of a third World Cup victory had he not been injured, the injury that forced him to retire. A guy who could slug one down to Cape Town Stadium after a game when the Cheetahs have just beaten Province. I mean, charismatic.
Probably still the best rugby player in Bloemfontein right now.
Probably could play for them now if he wanted to.
Easy. I think he should.
Could have come off the bench and kicked a big one from 65
meters. Is there a
meters.
precedent for a director of rugby to play in a Challenge Cup match?
You know what? Don't. If Francie came on for the last 10 minutes, if he had played like at Saracens, he'd probably kick one from one try line to the other. He would have had to go. Exactly. 50 miles behind him.
They would have run out of balls, mate.
Just keep it low. But the Cheetahs, just a wonderful, wonderful performance. Guys, support them. Go onto their social media. Send them lots of love. We talk about the big guns, the Sharks, the Bulls, the Stormers, the Lions, obviously because of their involvement in the Vodacom URC. But show those Oaks some love. And they do us so proud as South Africans.
Big
and
time.
We talk about ticker, gees, heart, as Bakkies would say. Heart, that's how I spell it. Take it or leave it. H-A-R-D. They have it all, and yes, they're a popular team, and there's such good young players that come through there, and there's some oldies there. I mean, Skalk Ferreira,
Skalk Ferreira,
75
man.
now.
Easily, easily.
I mean, that guy's been everywhere.
He's the only World War II veteran in the comp. Him and Brock Harris.
and he plays like he's 22.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just such an amazing vibe there, and some good rugby players. And I love that venue in Amsterdam, man.
And some underrated players like Victor Sekiketi, the lock, great player. Ranus Kutsia, strong scrum anchor. They've got talent there. It's not like these are secondary players. They've got some proper players in that squad. They just need more game time.
All right. So just tell me how the Challenge Cup works. In
The
terms of
yep.
leagues and all that, because a lot of people have been asking me in the week, how does the Champions Cup work
Yes.
in terms of who falls out, who falls in, and how does the Challenge Cup work? And is there hope then if a team kind of falls out of the Champions Cup, do they go into the Challenge Cup? For example, if the Stormers do struggle, is there still a gap for them to play in another competition, being the Challenge Cup?
Okay, so you've got 4 pools of 6 teams in the Champions Cup. The top 4 teams in each pool advance to the round of 16. The team that finishes 5th drops into the Challenge Cup playoffs. So that's 1 team from each of those 4 pools. That's 4 teams. The 12 teams from the Challenge Cup that go through to their playoff system come from their 3 pools of 6 teams, which means that 4 teams from each of the Challenge Cup pools advance to the knockout rounds. 2 drop out. So you've got 4 teams from each of the Challenge Cup pools. That's 12. And the 4 teams that got kicked out of the Champions Cup, they contest the playoffs in the Challenge Cup.
And then if you end last, you're gone.
You're gone, mates. 5th and 6th in the Challenge Cup, you're out.
And in the Champions Cup,
6th, you're out. There you
go
go.
back and you focus on your domestic competition.
Correct.
Thanks for that. I hope you got that. You can play it in super slow-mo. I hope the angle of delivery, Imad, has been good on Zell's face and on mine. I know you can't make me any prettier, you can't make me any younger, but you can make me a little bit more charismatic with a bit more color coding. And
How many frames per second are we shooting at?
I don't know, man, a lot. With me, it's apparently super slow. Looking at competitions, because we love to give you things. It is Christmas month. Santa Claus has come into town.
What time is it?
Citizen watches. We have managed to get you 3 watches. 2 of them are valued at a few grand each, and 1 is valued at a good 7,000 rand. You'll see the imagery if you're watching. If you're listening, let me just tell you, it's a crack of a prize. You're not going to get the prize in the next 2 weeks. We want you to go on our WhatsApp channel. You're going to go into a draw. All you have to do is you've got to subscribe to our WhatsApp channel. That's how hard it is. You don't have to answer any questions. You got to get our numbers up. We want to crack 50,000 before the end of the year. We're on 40,000. We have cracked 20 million views since July through our social media channels and YouTube. Thanks to you guys and gals and whoever else you're out there. We really love and appreciate the support. We're on 47 million views since we started the shows 2 years back. And when we get to 50 million views, we're going to have a crack of a prize for you as well. But for now, it's Citizen Watches. Just join us on our WhatsApp channel. Zels and I are going to be chatting over the week in the build-up to the URC games. A little few clips there. We may be taking a bit of time out over the next 10 days to kind of like get the body in check, get to gym. I've told Zels to work on his legs, leave the arms alone. I'll work on my arms, legs, and stomach. And come back more refreshed. But we're going to have a cool time in the next week. But we will be chatting. That WhatsApp channel is a cool channel. And if you've got anything to add that you want us to put on the WhatsApp channel, you email me, keo@keo.co.za, and you tell me about it. You visit the blog, leave a comment. We'd like to get your input. But for now, we called it 5 from 5 for the South African teams last week. Clearly, we got a little bit wrong there. It was 1 win, 1 draw, and 3 defeats.
We said
we didn't care, but now we do. And we figured out you can't play 6 games and win. You got to play 4. So the new structure really worked for us.
Just have one game.
Yeah, I'm still trying to understand. When I see Spain leading us 12-0 in halftime, what's happened, man?
What has happened?
So, sevens, look, I've never been the greatest sevens fans. I prefer the pure form of 15s, but when the Blitzbokke win, I take it. Any South African team wins, we take it. So congratulations to the Blitzbokke. Congratulations to the Lions. This weekend they're going to win well at home. Congratulations to the Bulls. They're going to win well at home. To the Stormers and to the Sharks, all I say is travel well, my friends, and enjoy the North. And to the Cheetahs, ons is lief vir jou. Speel rugby vir ons. Ons is lief vir jou. Baie lief vir jou. Julle manne van die bloem, ons is lief vir jou.
Mate.
You've got fans everywhere.
Data is not free. Get to the point. Let's go. These people are spending their money here.
Hey,
Come
mate,
on.
you're coming here with a Spider-Man shirt on, okay? Wearing the Lions thing, you make the odd raw. Huh?
People want the Raw back in the show. I hope at the top of this he might put it back in, mate.
They
People
want the
very
Raw
upset
back.
that the Raw is
They want
up.
the Raw back, and just because of that, and because you're giving me a little bit of a hard time in this December, they want the Raw back. Just before we go, I just want Ricky back as a little message and a thank you to the people.
To everybody who has been watching this show for so many episodes now, I don't even know if it's years or months. It feels like a decade I've had to work with this man, but it's been fun, hey? We appreciate all the support. Stay with us as we go through this festive season. Enjoy your time off, and we will see you again soon to enjoy the New Year's rugby.